I'm Michelle Robart from the TMC Newsroom, and I'm here with Rich Tehrani. And today we're going to talk about Verizon Business came out with the top 10 what's hot for 2009. And one of these is Enterprise 2.0.
So on Enterprise 2.0, the concept basically here is using all of the latest technologies like wikis and mashups and Twitter and Facebook and social networking and other ways that businesses should be collaborating and taking advantage of technology. And I've talked about before how the Obama administration, or not administration, but really the campaign, used a lot of these technologies to help with the election process, and it was my prediction also that going forward we'll see more and more companies take advantage of these types of technologies, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see President-elect Obama, as he becomes president, pushing more of these technologies to the country as ways to become more efficient and more productive. So I agree right on with number one.
And the next one is work as activity versus place. Now, what do you think that means?
Well, Verizon explains it as like hoteling, working from a hotel, or telecommuting with anyone who has an iPhone or a BlackBerry or any mobile device knows basically that once you get one of those devices, you're always on, you're always checking email, you're always working, and that's basically the concept here. And that is, so really your workplace is wherever you are, as opposed to just where you physically sit in a desk in your company headquarters.
That's interesting. So what about SaaS? SaaS is on there, on the Verizon Business list for what's hot.
And ironically, yes, they call it getting sassy, which is kind of interesting. And software as a service or cloud-based computing is a huge talking point, I'd say, or bullet point for the next year. And part of the reason for that is that companies have less money than they've ever had to spend, and they need to do so much, and they need to do so more with less. And the way you do that is you reduce your capital expenditures, you reduce them on software, on hardware, and you basically write your programs and have them run in the cloud, allowing service providers such as Amazon or IBM or Microsoft or some of the other players to manage all of the back-end work for you, and allowing you to just focus on writing your applications. And well-written applications will scale to multiple processors, to multiple systems, and so you don't have to worry about server by server management within your organization. You don't need to scale up by putting in 100 servers. You just basically let the cloud deal with it, and you pay as you go, or you pay as you grow. So let's say you have an application which is bringing you a lot of revenue, or let's say it's just supporting your corporate functions. As you put more users on it, you pay more, and as you take users off, you pay less.
That makes sense. Well, that kind of goes into the next one, which is doing more with less.
Yes, and so those go hand in hand, and that's I think in any major recession, that's a pretty basic prediction that can't be wrong. So yes, I agree there too. And these are from Nancy Gofis, by the way, who I've interviewed before on my blog. So and she's a senior vice president at Verizon. So it's worth pointing that out as well. These predictions.
Now, what about cutting through the compliance clutter?
Okay, so basically more seamless management of compliance issues, and there's so many different types of compliance issues that companies deal with, from Sarbanes-Oxley to HIPAA, and just we could spend a long time just talking about all the compliance issues, but trying to streamline all that and just making it easier to manage all of the challenges that companies have. So it makes sense that 2009 will be a big year for that, as well as I can assure you 2010, 11, 12, and probably 13 and 14.
And security is another big issue.
Yes, as information continues to propagate and proliferate over many devices on many networks, it is crucial that we secure all of this data. A lot of it's e-commerce data, a lot of it's credit card numbers, social security numbers, and for companies that house that type of information, they need to not only protect their customers' data, but they also need to protect their employees' data and ensure that that doesn't fall into the wrong hands. I mean, just simple things today like having backup tapes that are unencrypted is one of the challenges that the companies have to overcome, and things like that.
Verizon Business also says that unified communications integrated into business processes is another one that they predict will be big for 2009.
I agree. Nancy's 100% right there. We will see that UC is going to integrate into all business processes, and depending on what vendor you talk with, it's called something else. But Avaya happens to call it communications-enabled business processes, and that's a term that for me that works. And basically, the concept is to take whatever an organization does and integrate communications into it in such a way that you remove the latency from the organization. Now, I've called it just-in-time communications in the past, and I still think that that is a great term. The industry has chosen unified communications and communications-enabled business processes. The concept is still the same. You want to remove the latency from business processes, and one of the areas that comes up over and over is the hospitality. The medical industry, hotel industry, where a bed can cost anywhere from $1 to $2 million, and so getting people out of those hospital beds once they're healthy, getting them out of the hospital beds as soon as you possibly can amount to a massive amount of savings for hospitals. When you consider that it may take as many as 6 signatures to be gotten before you can let a patient out of a hospital. And let's say that takes you 6 hours. During that 6 hours, you're paying for food, you're paying for medicines, you're paying for all sorts of things that you don't necessarily need to pay for. So taking that window and shrinking it down is one of the areas where CEBP makes a lot of sense. And other areas are in manufacturing where you're able to have people on the front lines or in the managerial areas know exactly if there's a problem on the line, and whether and make decisions in real time to affect the line to let's say slow down production, increase production, or take other steps that are necessary.
Now, what about visual communications?
That's hot. We've been talking about telepresence and HD video conferencing for years here, and the vendors in that space are not predicting that they're going to have unbelievable years next year, but they do seem recession resistant, and the reason for them to be recession resistant is because companies have basically slashed travel budgets. So when you slash a travel budget, you have to think, what is the most efficient way for you to communicate with people that don't happen to be physically located where you are? And an easy way to communicate with them is through better collaborative technologies, and video is one that is a really good way to communicate with people in other destinations or other locations without having to travel to see them. Telepresence from major companies like Polycom,
Life-size.
yes, Life-size. Life-size is typically on the lower end, and they've got great products. Really good products. You've got like Cisco, HP, Nortel, and you've got Tamberg. They've got some of these really big systems, and these really big systems. Actually, I take that back, because Lifesize also they do rooms as well. And in fact, one of the things they tout is that they have more flexibility with their rooms in terms of being able to design rooms that fit more within the decor of your office. Is something that they've mentioned to me in the past, and as opposed to other vendors that are more I guess uniformed in their solutions. So I mean, you've got solutions that are $250,000, $300,000, all the way on down. Now, I used to hear that the companies buying the $250,000 to $300,000 systems were in the oil business, and they were in the financial industries. And I kept hearing oil and financial, and that made a lot of sense for a couple of years. I'm not sure if those industries are going to be spending that kind of money on those systems.
Not right now, they're not.
Well, if they do, it'll be with our taxpayer money, I'm sure. But hopefully they won't. But we'll see probably people spending money on more entry to mid-size systems, and the prices on everything tends to be coming down, especially in electronics, especially in things like large TVs. The cost for a large TV is plummeting. I know people here at TMC that have been waiting for TV prices to drop, and they literally drop $100 every couple of days on average. So, and those are for 48-inch or 50-inch TVs. So, since those are components of a lot of these systems, we're going to see the prices of the overall systems drop as well, which is good news for the viewers.
Yeah, 'cause some of them are very expensive, and that's why some companies don't use them, because they're afraid to spend the money up front, but in the end, it really saves them a lot of money.
Right, and so those are the calculations that are taking place right now. So even though the oil prices have come down, airfares haven't necessarily come down as fast, and so travel costs are still up there, and companies find it pretty easy to cut travel costs in a in a slowdown,
Mm-hmm.
one of the first things to go is travel budget. So you cut your travel budget, and now people need to work with each other, and this is a great way using video and telepresence and things like that.
Hmm. Well, the next one was IPv6.
Yeah, so IPv6 is basically we're running out of IP addresses. That's been a hotspot for years. We've been talking about that, and it's not news. And I don't know if next year is going to be the year where this takes off. And I would imagine that every year we'll see more and more IPv6 adoption. I'm not sure if there's actually a deadline next year. I know there was one coming up, and either way, we're going to see more and more IPv6 adoption. It's not as fast as I thought it might be, but we're eventually all going to switch over. So all devices are going to have to be IPv6 compatible, and programmers are going to have to deal with it as well.
Well, the last one that Verizon Business talks about is eco-responsibility, not surprisingly. So,
I believe that people don't really necessarily want to spend a lot of money on things that are green unless it saves them money. Now, it's great to talk about green and have green initiatives, but there's a limited amount of money people want to spend on being green unless there's some sort of financial benefit they can derive
mm-hmm.
from it. In some cases, I'm not 100% accurate. I know some companies that are spending extra money to be green. I was recently at Interactive Intelligence in Indiana, and they have a green initiative going on there, and it's a big push for them. And it's unclear how much of that is marketing related and how much of that is that they just want to be green. There's some marketing there. I've spoken with Nokia Siemens Networks, and they're really pushing the whole green idea in terms of mobile operators. I spoke with Harold Braun today. Those of you may remember he was at Nokia Siemens Networks, and now he's at Stratix. And Harold told me today that a big push for his company is also helping service providers be more green, especially when it comes to things like wireless backhaul, base stations, and some of these base stations are unbelievably big polluters. They use diesel generators in places like Africa, and so there's a tremendous amount of opportunity to make a diesel generator more green.
Well, over the next year, it'll be exciting to see what holds true and if they're right in their predictions for 2009.
I think Nancy's done a pretty good job here. I mean, there's a couple easy ones, but that were layups. But the predictions are predictions, and you want to have a couple dead easy ones. And I don't know if there's any big risks here that she took with these, but what this is going to allow her to do at the end of next year is to claim that she was, let's say, 80, 90, or 100% dead on. And anyone who's been watching the analysts in the financial market having that kind of record is pretty impressive in any market these days.
Yeah, that's true. Well, we'll have to wait and see. And I'm Michelle Robart from the TMC Newsroom.
I'm Rich Tehrani. Thanks for watching.